Oh, all right. My name is Pat. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Pat. Grateful to be sober. Grateful to be here. I love being in the Hollywood squares, the Zoom squares, the online meeting squares, whatever we're going to call it. I love being in this group. Ralph, I love you very much. And my prayers and my heart go out to you, brother. And um, yeah, I just love and respect you very much. Thank you for that kind introduction. And I see Pat over there too. Pato, and Chris F just sent me a text. Are you in here? And anyways, I have so many friends in here. It's so good to see people in here. She just sent me another text. And I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't even know I picked. I said, I had to print the flyer. I guess I did pick this topic. I don't remember when I got asked. I got asked a while ago, and I had another commitment, 4 to 5. And anyways, 4 to 5, and now I'm here. And I just say yes to Alcoholics Anonymous because that's where God wants me to be, I guess, and God wants me to be in the online meeting rooms for 2 hours in a row. I don't mind. Sign me up. Put me in the game, coach. You know what I mean? I want to be all the way in, right? My mom used to always say, come all the way in and sit all the way down, and I'm sitting all the way down in my chair at my desk tonight, and I don't mind. I'll sit here and be with you guys for a long time. Better than the life that I came from. And I'm alcoholic before we get into all this God business, because I remember when I was new, my sobriety date's the 23rd of October of 2002. My sponsor's Mike S. And man, I love that man. I respect that man. He still has what I want, He's I love him, and the greatest lie I tell is when someone says, "Pat, how you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm all right." And what happens for me when I don't tell the truth, I take a step in the cave. And then someone calls me and says, "Hey, Pat, what's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, nothing, man. Just, living the dream." I take another step in the cave. And I separate myself from you, and I separate myself from you, and I separate myself from you, and I'm isolated and I'm alone. And my sponsor knows just from the tone of my voice when I'm walking away from you. And I respect that man so much, and I hear God through him, and I'm grateful for him. My home group's called the South Coast Speakers Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. We meet on a Wednesday night in Laguna Beach at 7:30. I just moved to Redlands, and I'm gonna make the drive. I'm gonna make the drive an hour because I love and respect my home group, and I'll get there early and do what I do. So those are the statistics. I got to AA. I don't know who's new. I hope there's some newcomers here. I got here. I didn't believe in God. I'm atheist. You know what I'm saying? I'm actually like I'll go to the corner, the guy preaching, dude, and I'll go toe to toe. You know what I'm saying? And and he'll bust out the things, and I'm just going and I'm fighting, and that's the guy that got here. I was not. No way, no way, no way. They were talking about God. I was like, oh wait, we're gonna like sell literature door to door. This should be fun. You know what I'm saying? This is gonna be great. We're gonna go, sell the Bill W. bobblehead around town. And I was like, oh, that's what I want, a Bill W. bobblehead. I got one, you know what I'm saying? I got one now though, I'm all about it now. But when I got here, no way, no effing way was I gonna believe in God. And if this was about God, I didn't want what you had, And I was talking about this earlier, but my sponsor, he's like, "Oh, I want you to call," and I call the atheist guy, and he's telling me how he stayed sober. He's like 20 years sober, atheist guy. I was like, "Well, how do you stay sober?" He goes, "Oh, I practice things like honesty and willingness and service," and he told me about these principles. I didn't even know there are principles. And he said the greatest thing that I practice is honesty. He said, that's how I stay so honest. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, I could practice those things. And then my sponsor made me call this other guy, call him, and oh man, he was religious guy and he was grateful guy. He loved God. I mean, he was like, I love God, you know. And I was like, oh my God, you know, he talked about his relationship with God, is why he was so grateful, grateful bud, you know, and on. And I was like, oh my God, these guys are kooks, you know? And I go to the meeting, man, and everybody that was grateful talked about their relationship with God. And something was like, just like a little click. I didn't go, oh my God, I'm believing God. I didn't believe in God until I was 10 years sober, if you want to know the truth, right? But that's the guy that got here. I was crushed by a self-imposed crisis. I live in I have a progressive illness called alcoholism. You know what I mean? I'm assume everybody else does. You know, I mean the topic's God, but let's just talk about my progressive illness. I drink alcohol and I smoke crack cocaine. You know what I'm saying? And in between crack cocaine, I take hits of methamphetamine. You know what I'm saying? And then like I get like kind of weird. You know, I don't know if you're kind of a weirdo. You know what I mean? But like when you're up for like 7 days, like it gets hot, you know what I'm saying? And my clothes start coming off, you know, and I'm homeless and well, I call it camping. You know, you ever go camping? Yeah. Well, what happened with camping, guys? I ended up in a tent on Skid Row. You know, and this is how better I am. I'm like, dude, those poor guys, man. Look at them in their cardboard box, man. What a bunch of losers. You know what I mean? And then someone stole my tent, and I was in a cardboard box. You know what I mean? Hey, can I borrow this cardboard box with you? You know, and then I would think, man, I hope one day I get my tent back, you know, and I get a tent and I'm looking down, you know, and my progression of my disease well, let's just call it what it is. I prostitute myself for crack cocaine. You know what I mean? Let's call it what it is. I got here and thought I was what do you call it? Sexually assaulted. No, I was a willing participant. You know what I mean? I placed myself in positions to be hurt over and over and over again for one more. And when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, the only solution I had was to kill myself, right? Alcoholics Anonymous was not the solution. You know what I mean? Because I was hung up on this addict alcoholic thing. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't. Well, I didn't know I didn't know. You know, people talked about you can't talk about that here. Well, this is my truth. You know what I mean? And I guess I don't got to go to another fellowship. You know, all these different things. And someone laid out to me what alcoholism was, that when I put alcohol into my body, I can't stop until I end up in jail. And when I'm in jail, guess what? I have a mind that tells me I'm not alcoholic. And what do? I drink alcohol and end up back in jail. He goes, oh, you might be alcoholic. And I was like, okay, I'm alcoholic. And I was surprised. I was like surprised. I was like, alcoholic, concede the matter most self. Boom. Longest journey, head to the heart. Boom. Concede from the head to the heart. I'm alcoholic. And I said I was alcoholic. And thank God there was a foundation that was laid out for me in order for me to connect with you, in order for me to hear your little silly stories about God. Period. Because if it wasn't about me having an identification, I'm not like you, I don't need to have a relationship. And I tried to hold off on this idea of having a relationship. And what happened was oh, 19 minutes. There is a timer. Okay. What happened was I practiced the principles in all my affairs. I was making amends at 4 days sober. I was in jail helping a guy. I was sponsoring a guy at 90 days sober, and I was all in AA, all in. You know what I mean? Service junkie, man. I was like action figure guy. You know what I mean? And I was like, get out of self help other guy. And I was like not a good guy. I was a cheater in relationships, you know. And I got in a relationship with my son's mom and cheated on her, and got another relationship, cheated on her, and I had a kid along the way. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. And I tried every manipulation tactic, selfish and self-centered, to get rid of that kid. You know what I mean? And she decided to keep it, and I didn't know how to be a dad. I was terrified. I was like, how am I going to be a dad? And the fellowship surrounded me, and he taught me how to be a dad. Now, this is 5 years sober. I just found this letter. My mom used to always send this letter out. You guys see Patio? Yeah, she used to do that naked. And so she used to send this out to thousands of people. But it says right here, mom and dad. Eden's mom and dad are pretty cool people too. With no training, they are both really good parents. Along with full-time parenting, they are both taking an opportunity to go to school and are both doing very well. Patrick is getting A's and B's, and I'm very proud of him. He also remains very active in his recovery and works with a lot of young men. He celebrated 5 years in October, 5 years that I have not had to worry when the phone rings. I'm very grateful. Both he and Lindy, that's my son's mom, are actively involved in participating in and supporting young people's events and being of service in various levels. I'm pretty sure their recoveries and their focus on helping others change has attributed a lot to their ability to parent as well as they do. And now, my behavior is what I explained, but my actions, because of the big book, right? I'm reading 60 to 63, 80 to 88. I had entered the world of the spirit, though I didn't know I entered the world of the spirit. How do we know? You don't just go out and go, oh my God, I'm in the spirit. I feel it. You know what I mean? No, I had this thing called a God consciousness. And every time I've acted in that behavior, I was shameful, guilty, right? I had tapped in to the feelings of being a human being. Oh, the raw nervings, you know what I'm saying? And I need more of that in order to not, all right. And I'm chasing my tail and I'm growing and I'm being a dad to this kid and I took care of him for the first 6 months of his life. I put his head in a ceiling fan, you know what I'm saying? I had an intuitive thought that said, call the doctor. Like, where did that come from? Like God spoke directly. I called the doctor, he told me what to do. Nothing was wrong with him. He had a little bump on his head. But what happened for me was I cared more about another human being than I cared about myself, right? I show up to AA, I help new guys, I lean into the power source. I try to do some silly meditation, you know what I mean? Try to breathe for a minute, try to breathe for 2 minutes. I continue to take the action so I didn't understand what was happening, right? I don't think God cares what my intentions are, what my motives are, right? God cares what my actions are. And God saw what was going down, you know? And my son, I don't even know how long I talked for. What time do I end anyways? I thought that was a timer, but it's not.
You have about 24 minutes
Oh,
left.
perfect. Let me start over. My name is Pat. I'm an alcoholic, and and so God doesn't care, right? And so I'm continuing to take these actions, and I'm actively involved, and my son, when he was in second grade, like you might be thinking, like, what does this have to do with God, right? Look at Ali, man. I see God all in that right there. An alcoholic, man, in the cups, man. He don't have no kid on his lap. I see God all in that picture frame right there, man. I didn't know how to connect to another human being, dude. I didn't know how to be loved by anybody, let alone let you like love you, let you love me. I didn't know how to do that. And my son came into my life, man, and I prayed to God. I remember one day, man, I was like, dude, I couldn't handle this behavior. And I literally went to his crib and I got on my knees and I held him in his crib. One in the morning, he was laying in his crib. He was, I don't know, less than a year. And I said, God, I said, Eden is what I said. I was on my knees. I didn't say God. I said, Eden. I said, I love you more than life. I love you more than anything I've ever experienced in my life, but I'm here to say goodbye. And I was going to go get loaded. And God heard that prayer. I didn't believe in God. God heard that prayer. I got in my car and I was driving across the street and it was like midnight or 1 in the morning. And my Bluetooth in my car started ringing. My phone was over there, it started ringing, and it called my best friend Ryan Abila, rest in peace, called him. And he answered in two rings. Bing. He said, Pat. And I was like, I'm gonna kill myself. I can't do this. I'm gonna go get loaded. And he said, Pat, pull over and stop. And I pulled into this parking lot and he said a prayer. He said, God, please step into Pat's life. Please step into Pat's life and walk him back into that house. I got in my car and I went back to the house. And I don't know about you. I didn't believe in God. God was working in my life. It wasn't a formal prayer, wasn't anything, man. It was a goodbye to my kid on my knees, holding hands. That little boy, man, when he was in second grade, me and his mom, and the relationship ended. I took care of him halftime, and his mom really wasn't. Well, no, it's not her to tell that story. I showed up for that kid 100%. He stayed with me halftime, and it was Valentine's Day, and I wanted to go give him a gift, and so I drove up to his mom's house. It wasn't my day, and I go give him a gift, and he's sitting in the living room, and it's all pitch black at like 4 in the afternoon. He's like this close in front of a TV screen, and I know something's wrong. And I said a prayer because my feet were trained. I didn't believe in God. God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And all of a sudden, God started maneuvering me. And I grabbed him. I said, "Hey, let's go get some dinner." And I text his mom. I said, "Hey," because she wasn't there. There was no one there. I said, when you get back, me and Eden are gonna go get some dinner. And we went to go get food and we sat down and he started to cry. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "It's like, I don't want to eat food." I said, "Why?" He's like, I'm afraid if I eat, I'm gonna die." And I got restless, irritable, and discontent. And man, I got afraid. I was scared. How am I gonna, what my kid's got to eat? If he doesn't eat, he's gonna die. He's gonna get skinny. You know what I mean? And he didn't eat for 3 days. And then all of a sudden, I was with him and I said, "Why don't you pray with your kid?" And I don't believe in God. My feet are trained. And all of a sudden, I said a prayer with my son. I was holding his hands and I said, "Hey, God, please, be with us and bless our food." And man, my son's scared to eat. And then I had this thought that said, "Why don't you feed him softer food?" So I got him some yogurt and some turkey and he started eating it. And next thing you know, it's boom, he's eating. But guess what? We're praying before every meal now. And it was like a couple days later after that, maybe a week later, I go put him in bed and he's like, "Dad," he's like, I don't want to go to sleep." And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "I'm afraid I'm going to die in my sleep. And if I die, I'm going to miss you." I don't hear miss you. What do I hear? Not following dad's directions. So I get restless, irritable. "You got to go to sleep, yeah, like he's going to be able to go to sleep with me yelling, arguing and yelling at him. This goes on for a couple of days, and then I have an intuitive thought that says, "Why don't you pray with your kid?" Man, I had tapped in the spirit, man, God consciousness, didn't even know it. And so I did. I said a prayer with him, and then I had this intuitive thought. I said, "Why don't you read a book with him?" So we did, and we read a book. He fell asleep just like that. But what happened was now we're praying before meals. Now we're praying before bedtime. And then about a week later, I go drop him off at school, and then he starts crying, and I'm like, "Oh, he's manipulating me." You know what I mean? I don't want to go to school. Sure enough, he's gonna die at school. Now, faith for me is a confident trust born of experience. I have enough experience that shows that when I'm argumentative with my kid, it doesn't help him, right? But when we pray, I have an intuitive thought that a solution comes. And so all of a sudden I said, "Let's say a prayer." And we said a prayer and I go, and then all of a sudden the words came and says, "What does your dad do when he's afraid?" He goes, "You go to AA and help people." I go, "Well, you're not in AA, but how can you help people?" He goes, "I don't know. I'm going to go try to find out." Great. And he went to elementary school, dude, and I went to work, selfish and self-centered Pat. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think about my kid going to be a service. I think about me, me, me. And I go pick him up, and my son, Eden, he's there. And he goes, Dad, you won't believe it." I go, "Well, what happened?" He's like at recess, I saw this kid. He was way out there by himself, and I ran out there to go just go say hi. My name's Eden, and I go, "What was on?" He said he was crying. I go, "Well, why was he crying?" He said he found out that his dad and his mom were getting a divorce that day, and he was going to be at his mom's halftime and his dad's halftime. And my son had been living like that for the last 5 years. He goes, "I told him how I've been able to get through that over this time. I told him how it's hard for me and what I do." And I said, "Oh, wow, that's great." And he learned, right? He learned through prayer and service, right? Not because I'm a great guy, because my feet were trained, because I had done the work to tap into the inside, to tap into the power. I had been transformed from the inside out, right? You were working through me, which was then working through my son, right? And man, wow, man, I didn't even know this was going on. I can't tell you this stuff when I'm going through it. I'm not like, hey, Ralph, this is what I'm going through, and I just said a prayer, and I've tapped the inner resource, and I know that no, it doesn't happen like that. It's when I look in the rearview mirror. Man, I look in the rearview mirror. It's a small little mirror, but when I look in, I can see God's fingerprints all through it. And when I look through the rearview mirror, I get to tell you my story, right? And that's what we get to do here is we look in the rearview mirror and we tell each other's story, right? Ali talks about the story of love, huh? Man, I didn't know that I was falling in love with my kid. That's weird to say, but it's true. Didn't know I was falling in love with God. I didn't know that God was breaking down the ego in order for me to get to a place where I can have an experience with God. And man, long story short, man, my behavior caught up to me. 8 years sober, I was gonna kill myself. Literally, like driving my car 100 miles an hour down the road, gonna barrel my car in oncoming traffic, and I had tapped that inner resource. I heard a voice that called that guy Jonathan for a Tuesday night meeting before you kill yourself. Intuitive thought. Dude, I called the guy. I was literally gonna bear right when I was gonna turn, and the guy met me, and he got out of bed with his wife. He drove down there. He opened the book to page 52, having trouble personal relationship, can't control your emotional, pray to misery. He goes, what? He goes, you think you're suffering from a broken relationship? He's like, that's not what's happening. He said, you're dying of untreated alcoholism. He said, I've been watching you around the rooms for a while. He said, you have no relationship with God. I was like, how did he know? And he said, I'm not going to sponsor you, but I'll take you through the steps. And he took me through the steps. And what happened was I was able to identify that God was love and God was intuition. I had been given a gift from the day I was born of intuitive thought. Now, what blocked that intuitive thought was my resentment towards my dad. What blocked that intuitive thought was resentment towards my mom. What blocked that intuitive thought was a hurt by you. What blocked that, right? And I had this wall that was built so thick. I had all these secrets that kept me in the cave, kept me away from you, connection with you, to listen to you talk about your relationship with God, the guy that was angry and violent towards God. I had built this place and I was isolated and I was alone. And what happened through going through the steps, it was like one brick at a time started to come off. The brick fell, the brick fell. This part of the wall crumbled, this part of the wall crumbled. And I got to a place where right when COVID hit, I had a friend of mine named Eric O from Phoenix, Arizona, talked about meditation. I had prayer down, dude. I could pray with the best of them. You know what I mean? I don't mind praying with you, over you, all of it. But meditation, I don't know how you do that. How do you do meditation? I think too much. He goes, me too. I was like, what do you mean? You're like the Buddha. You know what I mean? You're like, woo. You could probably meditate for hours. You know what I mean? Like, I get like 30 seconds in. You know what I'm saying? I'm like already thinking about something else. He goes, yeah, welcome to being human being. We all think, you know? He said, Pat, I want you to start off with 2 minutes. What do I do? He goes, you just breathe, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And when you have a thought, notice the thought, say, I'm letting you go, thought, refocus on breath. And so I started doing that. And I started doing that for 6 months and COVID hit. And you remember that, man, right? Huh? It was scary times. And I was terrified. And all of a sudden, I had an intuitive thought that's a discontinued thought, focus on breath. Whoa, meditation worked me in the physical world. The spiritual world of God and meditation worked the physical self. And I got on my knees and I did some breathing. And all of a sudden, like I realized that there's this thing called Zoom and there's this thing called like online meetings and these old timers that don't know how to get on. And I could be a service here and I could be a service here. And remember all the conventions that started and all the meetings. Pretty soon I was so busy. And then I was cool. I was in the game, me and God doing the deal. COVID, world crushing down. And I'm like all in. And then I got afraid again. Humanness, human, brain, mind created worry, fear. Intuitive thought said, focus on breath. And I did. I got into some meditation again, and boom, what happened in meditation that time was I realized I went all the way back, visual sense of when I got sober on Skid Row. And the progression of Skid Row guy getting sober, six-figure income, better than I had ever done. And then I was fired from that job and I had nothing. And I had this little boy that I was a single parent to. And then I started a company and things came about. And then I was fired from that company. The darkest time, had an attorney that settled the case. And the day my mom died, the attorney ripped me off for my settlement. And what I saw through meditation, that the darkest of times in my sobriety, I could see how God was molding the man of love and molding the man of light to get to this point. Well, the darkest time that I've ever seen in my 51 years of life, COVID, right? That I had a responsibility from that point to get up and go put love and light into this world. And I got up and I never looked back at COVID and the darkness, that I had a responsibility from God, God-driven self forward. And so prayer, right? Getting down in prayer, I don't know about you. I don't hear God, Pat, make a right hand turn. You know what I mean? I don't hear that. Most of the time, I hear nothing, which means I do nothing, which means I then get deeper into meditation so that I can hear the presence. And dude, I'm all in. I'm all in, man. This God business, God is showing off in my life. I'll tell you what, so I bought a house for the first time, Skid Row guy, 23 years sober. Now I wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have. I have someone in my life. So let's go back. My son going to college. He got in. We'll start with that one. He got in. He graduated with a 4.5 grade point average. I had to ask him, how'd you get the 0.5? He said honors classes. I didn't know what that meant. I don't even have a high school diploma. You know what I mean? And then he applied for 4 colleges for fashion and design. I thought, oh man, you're gonna be homeless. Fashion and design. I call my sponsor. He goes, how many different items of clothes do you see around you? I was like, man, everywhere. He goes, I think he'll be just fine. And I said, all right. And so he got his own sewing machine. Dude, he made 4 outfits on his own. I was his model. You know what I mean? Took pictures. I was his model. And he applied to 4 colleges and he got into all of them. I want him to go the one in LA because it's closer. And I tried to manipulate the situation. And as me and his mom, boom, fighting. And I called her a child and she needed to grow up. And what happened from me from that behavior, it shut me off from the sunlight of the spirit. Man, I felt so away from God. I felt so afraid, right? Because I was afraid I was going to lose my kid. Thank God for the 10th step. It says to continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God to remove them. We talk to somebody about it. We make amends if necessary. Then we turn our thoughts and attentions to who we can help. I know in that moment I need to make amends. But guess what? I don't make amends. I call my sponsor, he goes, you owe an amends for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Guess what? If you hold on to that, you're not getting into no meditation upon awakening because your head is spinning. You know what I mean? And I don't feel God. I'm separated. And then all of a sudden, I say, I got to make the amends. I sit down and make the amends. And she says, you know what, Pat? She said, I'm equally afraid as you. I don't want to lose my son either. Man, what happened? There's the connection with God, the connection with you. Man, I'm back in the game. And he got accepted into the Fashion Institute Technology in New York. Now, It's like one of the leading fashion and design schools in the country, right? Which is way better than what I could have imagined for him in his little school over here in LA, you know? I asked him, I said, what would you equate your success to, Eden? This fast, he said, because Alcoholics Anonymous, Dad. He said, all of the stories that I hear in Alcoholics Anonymous, I believe is what my success is to. And so Eden always tells me to make sure to tell you to keep telling your stories. You know, he got in by all on his own. I didn't, no one helped him. I tried to help him. He goes, you didn't go to college, Dad. How are you going to help me? You know? And TJ Bryant, rest in peace, overdosed on heroin and died. Him and TJ were like this. They were best buddies, you know? Johnny M in and out for 9 years, man, has 9 years sober, right? Saw that, watched men, just hateful men become lovers in life, men that hated God who loved God, all the transformation got him to that point, and the kid sends me a text today. He's in finals. He just sent me his thing, whatever you call it. I'm like, this kid's gonna be famous, right? Like, what the heck? These items. I'm like, what the heck? I'm blown away. You know what I mean? I'll wear that dress. You heard my story. That might be true. You know what I'm saying? And, but like, I'm like, wow, wow, like God, right? If it was up to me, I wouldn't have done. I was like trying to convince him, how am I going to pay for college? I don't know how I'm going to do it. I had someone in my life that pushed me that said, everything's going to be all right, Pat, right? Though I believe, though I'm connected to the power source, I need you. I need you to encourage me to take the action, right? Because God's not going to push me in, but you do. You tell me, Pat, it's going to be all right. You tell me, you know what? I sent my kid to college and everything worked out. You know what I mean? You tell me your experience, your strength, and you give me hope that I too can do that. But if I don't have a relationship with God, I'm not going to trust you. And same thing with this house, man. I have someone in my life who said everything's going to be all right. You're going to do it. And I was at Disneyland with a sponsee and his wife, and she's a realtor, and he's telling me that, oh my God, like I have this lender, and I go, I already got this lender. They told me I can only do this, and it ain't gonna work out. And my sponsee said, why don't you just try? Well, if your sponsee's telling you to try, man, if you don't do it, guess what? He ain't gonna listen to you. And so I said, okay, I'll do it. Like if I was altruistic or something, I mean? Oh yeah, I'll do it. And so the next day, sure enough, I did it. I turned in all the things, you know what I mean? I did the deal. And within 3 weeks, and then I was over the house. I'm like, I'm over this. I'm looking, I'm not doing anymore. And then 3 weeks, I was in the middle, and 3 weeks to the literally all of a sudden this house fell in and I was like, that's my house. I walked in, I was like, this is the perfect house. This is me. Like, what the heck? Like, oh my God, like God's working in my life. Like, holy cow. And 2 weeks after that, the loan went through, closed, boom. I was like, wait a second. I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? But I'm already all in. I'm already all in. I can't turn back now. And when it's closing, my sponsor said, well, you could rent it out if you have to, and I'm sitting in my backyard today, and I'm looking at my garage, and I'm looking at all these things that I have to store. I'm looking at my son's 85 E30 BMW that we're restoring. I get a text from my son. He says, when's your E30 getting out of the shop? Because we build these cars together. I have a 2-car garage to sit them in. I'm just sitting back there and the sun's beating on me, and I'm thinking, what the heck? How did I get from Skid Row, Skid Row to here? I fucked. And I say, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, for encouraging an hopeless alcoholic to concede to my innermost self that I was alcoholic. Because without that, I don't have this. Because every time I said I was an alcoholic, I separated myself from you and I didn't have to do what you told me to do. My sponsor in the early year, I said, if you want what we have, you do what we do. And I said, what do you do? He goes, oh, well, let me tell you, right? He Yoda'd me, dude. He was like Jedi, you know what I mean? And I'm continuing to do what you tell me to do because you show off your life, you talk about your relationship with God, and guess what? Today, my name is Pat, and I'm a grateful alcoholic. And I love God, I love prayer, and I love meditation. And that's all I have. And I think there's questions. I love you all.
My name is, my name is Ralph White. I'm an alcoholic. I'm gonna come all the way off the board with a question for you, Pat. And remember when your mom passed, um, and I saw you. So thank you for paving the way. And my question to you is, uh, what have conversations been like with her?
What are conversations to like today with her? Oh, I love that question. Man, I'll tell you that I am closer to my mom today than I've ever been in my entire life. And someone before my mom died, somebody told me that I used to always throw my pennies away. And somebody said, "Oh no, they got to save their pennies." So I was talking to my mom and I said, "Hey," I said, "this guy told me I got to save my pennies." And she looked at me and she said, "This was before she died." She said, "Pennies are from heaven, son." And I didn't know what she meant. You know, I chalked it up and she was on life support in the hospital. I was sitting outside the hospital and I was praying. I didn't know I was talking to my mom. And I was talking to my mom and I looked down and there was a penny on the ground. And I said, I see you, mom, you know, and I can tell you I found a penny just about every day on the ground since my mom passed, you know. And I the other day I was saging my house here and I could feel the presence of my mom big time in the room, you know, and I'm talking to my mom and I literally like felt the power. I could feel just the power of over my shoulders and around my heart, just holding me close, you know. And I just felt a gentle, I love you, Pat. Oh, I love you. Um, the forgiveness from my mom is beautiful. Um, that's a heavy question. I love you, Ralph. And
Thank you, Ralph, for the question. Thank you, Pat. Kelly, come on up, please.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm an alcoholic. Pat, thank you so much. I I didn't know how much I needed to hear your story tonight, but my higher power obviously did, and I'm just blown away. So thank you so much. You said something, and I don't know if you'll remember, but you said what faith means to you, and I was trying to write it down and I didn't capture all of it, but it started with like faith is the confidence.
yeah, I said faith for me is a confident trust born of experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Emma, your turn. Come on up, please.
Hey y'all, I'm Emmy. I'm an alcoholic. Hi Pat. Thank you so much for being here, and I love seeing your face. My question first, like the whole idea of hearing the spirit realm, right? The message from the spirit realm. I'm totally into that. I'm a spiritualist, so like I get the messages all the time. I know how I know the difference between God's will and my will. So my question is, how do you know the difference between God's will and God's voice compared to, because spirit speaks in our voice in our head compared to us talking to ourselves or spirit talking to us. How do you experience that?
I appreciate that, Emmy. Good to see you as well. I'm grateful for the gift of my will. I think that I have my will in order for me to seek that power source, to seek God. It's important for me to align my wants and desires with God. I I think that for me, when it's easy, like when I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do, and like I have masterminded what I think it is, it feels easy, but it doesn't feel right here. And so for me, for example, like I recently was in a relationship, and it was 3.5 year relationship, 4 year relationship. She had a lot of mental health stuff, and the more I tried to exert my will, not really realizing like I'm just trying to be helpful person, supportive person, right? Like kind and loving as she's going through this hard time in her life, right? Like I have this internal knowing that that I need to take care of Pat because I'm in trouble, right? My emotional and mental space is in trouble. And so the more I'm trying to manage that situation, the harder it got on my spirit, knowing that I needed to take care of myself. And so I hear it here, and I took an action to separate myself. I said, "There's not anything I can do to make you happy or to make this right for you." And so I made a decision to walk away and allow that person to be with God. And through that, right, there's been a transformation within myself, closer to God, clearer understanding of me as a man, kind, loving, understanding, but not being in this codependent, toxic space. And so there was freedom that occurred, but it started with hearing within myself and then taking an action based on that because I had heard that for a long time and didn't take any action.
Thank you, Emmy, for your question. Thank you, Pat. Jamie, come on up, brother.
Hey family, Jamie C, grateful recovered member of this program, Alcoholics Anonymous. And thanks to God and very strong sponsorship, I got to wake up this morning and not come to. And for that, I'm forever grateful. And thank you to everybody who's in service today. And Pat, thank you for your share. I just want to, I don't know if it's so much as a question, but, I've only shared this with a handful of people in my recovery. And when I made amends to my mother in 2018, before she passed away, because I stole change from her when I was a little boy, she told me that she always had her dimes separate from her other change. And I asked her what the significance of that was. And I'm only bringing this up because you talked about pennies. She told me that that was her father's way of communicating with her, that he made it to the other side and that he was safe. And she told me that if she in fact made it to the other side, which she died shortly thereafter, that she would leave me dimes. And I've never heard anybody in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, or in my life for that matter, share about using coins of significance to speak with their deceased loved ones. But I will share with you that just in this year alone, I found all those dimes. Heads up. So the fact that I have entered the realm of the spirit by working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous allows me to be an open channel to those people and to my loved ones, just shows me that they are there and that they do want to communicate with me. And that I truly have this gift if I come all the way in, like you said, and I sit all the way down and I just work this program every single day to the best of my ability. And I just wanted to share that because I've never heard anybody share any story about coins in the program of recovery and speaking with their loved ones. So thank you for speaking today. And Ralph, that was a great question.
Thank you, Jamie. Calvin, my brother, you close us off, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Calvin. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you so much, Ali. And Patrick, Pat, what a great message, man. You know, you told a love story. You told a cold love story. You talked about being in a tent. Somebody took your tent, you end up in a cardboard box. You end up coming in Alcoholics Anonymous. End up buying a house with a two-car garage, rebuilding cars with your son that your son went to college. My God, what a love story, man. What a love story. And when he was talking about your mom, I was thinking about my mom. Made me think, and the fellow who talked before me just now, Jamie. And I was thinking about, I've been sitting in this chair for 20 years. My mother died about 12 years ago, 13, 12 years ago. And right behind me, a guy seen it on Zoom one time. He said, "What is that sitting over my left shoulder?" He said, "Is that a Easter egg basket?" I said, "No, it's my mother's sewing basket." And on top of that is her pocketbook with everything in it, her driving license, her her social security card. Everything that was in it when she passed is still in it today. And I feel her presence every day, and I see it totally different like you do. I think what happens is when people go, you really see who they were. You really see who they are. For that, we kind of take things for granted that they're going to be here and all that kind of stuff. But once they go, you start to see who they really are and how much they touched your life. And I want to thank you really a lot. And thank you, Ali, for asking me to talk. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Calvin, for closing off. And Pat, my brother, as always, so appreciative to be in your presence and hear you. Throw it back to John.